They say forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. I gave it freely, wrapped in cheap tissue paper and sincere smiles. I forgave my boss, Leonard, who took my spreadsheet formulas and presented them as his own, then promoted his nephew over me. I forgave my friend Myra, who slept with my fiancé 3 weeks before the wedding. I even forgave the fiancé, Derek, who packed his things into my grandmother's vintage suitcases and left a post-it note on the fridge that said, "You're too much, Liv. Find less." I did the work. I lit candles. I wrote unsent letters and burned them in a ceramic bowl. I told my therapist, I forgive them, until the words felt like smooth pebbles in my mouth. But pebbles are heavy. And you never forget where they came from. The year I turned 32, I lost my job, my engagement, and my social circle. Myra kept the friends in the divorce. Derek kept the apartment. I kept a cat named Waffles and a journal with a cracked leather spine. In that journal, I wrote down every slight, every name, every date. I told myself it was catharsis. It was not catharsis. It was a ledger. 2 years passed. I moved to a smaller city, took a quieter job, and learned to be alone. I dated a kind man named Paul who never remembered my birthday, but always remembered how I took my coffee. That was enough. Paul taught me that peace was not the absence of war, but the presence of something soft to land on. Then one night, I Googled Derek out of boredom. He was engaged to Myra. The website was a pastel nightmare, Myra plus Derek, a love reborn, with a countdown to the wedding. 63 days. I stared at the screen so long that Waffles jumped onto the keyboard and pressed Ctrl plus W. I should have closed the laptop. I should have called Paul. Instead, I opened the journal. The first thread. I didn't plan revenge. Not at first. I planned a visit. Myra had posted an address for a bridal shower, a rooftop bar downtown. I RSVP'd under a fake name. I told myself I just wanted to see her. To prove I was fine. I wore a green dress she once said made me look washed out. I arrived late, when the champagne was flowing and the games were in full swing. Myra was holding a bouquet of ribbon streamers, laughing, her head tilted back. She looked happy. Genuinely, obscenely happy. And something in my chest didn't ache. It clicked. I realized I had not forgiven her. I had simply buried the knife so deep that even I forgot where it was. But now, standing in that doorway, I remembered exactly where I'd left it. I didn't make a scene. I walked up to her, smiled, and said, "Congratulations, Myra. You look beautiful." Her face went white. Then red. Then the careful, practiced sympathy slid over her features like a mask. "Liv," she whispered. "I'm so glad you came. I've wanted to reach out." "No need," I said. "I forgave you. Long ago." Her shoulders dropped an inch. Relief. I watched her drink it down like water. Then I added, "But I never forgot." I walked out. That was the first gift I gave myself, the look on her face when she realized my forgiveness didn't mean a thing. The second thread. Leonard, my old boss, had since been promoted to regional director. His LinkedIn was a monument to mediocrity, photographed at golf courses, holding plaques, shaking hands with people who deserved better. His nephew, the one promoted over me, had already been fired for embezzling petty cash. Leonard kept his job. Of course he did. Men like Leonard always do. I still had copies of every spreadsheet. Every late-night email where he'd asked me to tweak the numbers just a little. I had never used them. Forgiveness, remember? But I hadn't forgotten. I created a burner email account. I sent Leonard's direct supervisor a neatly packaged file titled Regional Profit Discrepancies Internal Audit Request. No threats. No accusations. Just numbers. The numbers don't lie, and Leonard's had been singing off key for years. 3 weeks later, Leonard's LinkedIn updated, open to work. I poured a glass of wine and toasted my laptop screen. The third thread. Derek was harder. Derek hadn't stolen money or betrayed a friendship. Derek had simply broken my heart and left a post-it note. That's not illegal. It's not even unusual. But it was cruel in a way that lived under my skin like a splinter. He was marrying Myra in a vineyard. I knew because the wedding website had a tab called Our Story, which featured a timeline that somehow omitted the 18 months he lived in my apartment, eating my cereal, calling me his future wife. I couldn't ruin Derek's career. He didn't have one. He was a life coach now, which meant he posted inspirational quotes over photos of sunsets and charged desperate people $200 an hour to tell them to hydrate. So I thought smaller. More elegant. I found his client list. Not illegally, he'd bragged about them in a podcast interview. 10 names. I wrote each of them a polite, unsigned letter. Did you know your life coach left his fiancée by post-it note 3 weeks before the wedding? Just a data point for your consideration. I didn't expect anything to happen. But people talk. By the end of the month, Derek had lost 3 clients. He posted a vague, anguished Instagram story about haters who don't understand the journey. I understood the journey perfectly. I had taken it myself. I just had better luggage. The wedding. I did not crash the wedding. That would be petty, predictable, and exactly what Myra expected. Instead, I did something quieter. 3 days before the wedding, I sent Myra a package. Inside, a copy of Derek's post-it note. I'd kept it in my journal for 2 years, and a smaller note in my handwriting. I forgave you both. But I thought you should remember why. I didn't go. I sat at home with Paul and waffles and ate pad thai out of the carton. But I heard what happened. My old friend Carla, who had sided with Myra, but still felt guilty enough to text me updates, sent a breathless voice memo the next day. Liv, you won't believe it. Myra found the note the morning of the rehearsal dinner. She confronted Derek. He admitted it said it was taken out of context, and then Myra pulled up your old engagement photos from before they got together. Derek had the same post-it note in your kitchen, Liv. Same handwriting. Same phrase, find less. She asked him if he'd written that to you. He said, that was different. The wedding was delayed 2 hours. Then it happened anyway. Myra wore white, Derek wore a smug smile. But Carla said the vows were quiet, the champagne sour, and the first dance had the energy of two people who'd just signed a lease they couldn't afford. The aftermath. I didn't feel victorious. I felt something stranger, clean. Not the scrubbed, performative cleanliness of forgiveness. The messy, honest cleanliness of a wound finally drained of pus. Leonard was fired. Derek's practice shrank. Myra stopped posting on Instagram altogether. I had not destroyed them. I had simply reminded them that actions have echoes, and I had been standing in the canyon with a stopwatch. Paul never knew. He asked me once, over coffee, if I ever thought about the people who hurt me. I said, every day. But not the way I used to. That was true. I no longer wanted them to suffer. I just wanted them to remember. And they did. Derek sent me an email 6 months later. No subject line. Just, you win. Happy. I wrote back, I forgave you. But I never forgot. That's not winning. That's just living. He never replied. The end. I still have the journal. The leather is more cracked now. Waffles has taken to sleeping on it, which feels like an endorsement. Paul proposed last month with a verbal offer, not a post-it note, and I said yes. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. But forgetting is a different muscle entirely. Some people think revenge is about destruction. It's not. It's about balance. A scale that was tipped must eventually be leveled. Not by an eye for an eye that leaves everyone blind. But by a truth for a lie. A memory for a dismissal. A quiet, precise reminder that you were there. You mattered. And you did not, in fact, find less. You found everything you needed to build the rest of your life. You just didn't forget the blueprints. End.